everyone, Sarah Seckler here. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the differences between the Mindful Productivity Guide and the Daily Productivity and Brain Dump book and how I use them together in my life and business. So first of all, we'll start with the Mindful Productivity Guide because I feel like it really helps you kind of lay out the foundation for your life and business, and there's quite a few templates in here that help you do that. So let's go ahead and I'll open that up and show you what's included, and I'll have links for all of these journals below. There's also digital versions in case you would prefer to use them on your iPad. So this is an undated planner, and there's quite a few things in here that we'll walk through, including a year overview, a month-by-month breakdown, a task bank, an annual game plan, your quarterly game plan, project pages, an idea space to surface your most important ideas, and then a bunch of other stuff that we'll just go ahead and walk through. So one thing I love a lot about this planner is that there's a beautiful index in the front where you can not only see everything that you're working on, but you can also write down where pages are for specific things. So I won't go through all of this, but this basically explains how to use the planner, how to use your monthly success lists and daily actions and habit trackers. There's also lists here for different collections and list ideas, monthly bucket list ideas, all those kind of things. So here we have a yearly overview, and this is where you will write down the month that you're starting in. So it's August right now, so if you were starting now, you write down August and then you just write down all the dates. And you definitely don't have to do this for the whole year in front of you, but I like to do that so you can come back here and reference what's coming up. This month by month section is really handy because this is going to show you what is coming up every day of the month. So for example, you'd write down August, and then you'd write down 1 through 31 for the days of the month, and then in this column you would write down the days of the week. So I actually do obviously Monday through Sunday, but I write an R for my Thursdays instead of a TH because it makes it easier, and it's something I learned in college. So if you ever see my days laid out and you're wondering why I have an R for Thursday, that's just something I learned and I've stuck with it. So there's 4 of these pages so that you can map down all 12 months of the year. Then you also have weeks of the year, and all of this is also broken down on my website. I will leave a link below if you want to find a link to where you can find the current weeks of the year. But sometimes it can be also helpful to write down the week number of the year and what those dates are. So, you know, let's say we're in week 42, I don't know what week we're in. You would write that here, and then you would write the days that it starts and the days that it ends. This can be helpful, and we'll get to this later, because when you're looking at your work back or your quarterly planner, you can kind of know, you can get a better idea for the time frame of the projects you're working on. Then we have a master task list and task bank. I find this really helpful because while I always am a big proponent of talking about focus projects and how to-do items that are tied to an actual focus project are going to help you know what to do and when, and work a lot better than just random to-do lists, there's always going to be things that are super random that you need to work on that have to go somewhere. So that's what this random task bank is for, and I use this both for business and personal tasks, and it's kind of just a running tally of things that you definitely don't want to forget. So then we have the annual game plan, and this is where you're going to decide kind of what your theme or focus is for the year, and it doesn't have to be a word, but it could be kind of just like what your overall goal is. So like by the end of the year, you'd like to feel or accomplish or work toward what specific thing. Then in here, you write down your top 4 yearly goals that relate to that, and this is helpful too because you can write down the quarter that you're starting on, so it doesn't have to be quarter 1, and you can also write down what the months are of that quarter. in here and what your main focus is. And then I also like to write down important dates and events that maybe are going on. Maybe you have specific collaborations that you're working on, things like that. So here's an example of a quarterly goal page. So this is where I do what I call my work back calendars, and I map out, and as you can see, this quarterly goal page was not the actual quarter of the year. I happened to start it in March, which was actually part of quarter one, right? But this was when I was starting it. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It depends on when you're working through things and how your brain works. But I was able to write down kind of like the dates and the week number, and then what main projects I was going to be working on in my business. So I had a couple different launches for different courses and different updates, and as you can see, each week got a focus theme. So for example, I was creating a Google Workspace course, and in this particular week, the goal or the focus project was to record and create the curriculum, and then there was a plan to do a week of promos, and then when the live doors opened, and I had notes over here. So there's a ton of different ways you could use this. You can use it for your business. You could also use it for, if you're training for a marathon or something like that, and track your running progress. But this has all of those spaces for you to kind of get an overview. And then from here, I break down tasks into a more micro level in the weekly sections, which we'll get to in a little bit. So then there are project pages, and let me see if I have a blank one. So here was one that I was doing for Google Workspace course. I think I ended up mapping most of this out in Google Docs and my brain dump book, actually. So that's why it's not in here. But these project pages have a place to write your project name, your due date, the time estimate, description, your work timeline, and then the actual time it took you, date completed. This checkbox appears when you've done the whole thing. But I like that there's tons of room here to write down what you want to research, a box here for maybe mind mapping, and then a bunch of tasks that you might have. And one thing I like to do is sometimes I will color code related tasks or highlight a chunk of them in blue and then a chunk in pink, depending on what they're doing. And then I usually use this page over here to write down questions I might have about my project or other things I need to research. I have a whole training on focus projects in general that I will also link below, where I go in depth in detail about how I actually set up a focus project and all the questions that you can ask yourself to get really detailed on the work that you're doing. So there's quite a few of these, I think maybe 8 project pages. And then we jump into the super amazing, awesome idea space. And this is just a place where it can be really fun to write down top of mind ideas. I think my other planner has most of mine in here. But these are things like maybe you want to start a podcast, or you've got an amazing idea for a journal or a planner, and you don't want to forget them. This is that place to keep those ideas front of mind. So then we go into the monthly bank section. So the way that this planner is designed is that you have the front where you're doing your annual planning and your annual, quarterly kind of big picture mapping. And then you have your monthly banks that are stacked together, and then you have your weekly stuff in the back. So, and this allows you to plan, because I don't always use a physical planner every single week. And then what I will often do is write down the page numbers of the weekly pages that these banks are attached to. But inside your monthly banks, you have a series of pages. So the first one is your monthly overview, where you're writing down your top 3 priority tasks and then any additional ones. There's a place to write down a word, a theme, or an intention, and this may be related to your overall annual word or theme, and sometimes it can be fun to break them down into a monthly thing that you want to embody or remember. There's a place for appointments, the date and the times, notes and reminders, and ideas. And then this is the section I love so much. These are different every single month, and there's basically seed sentence prompts that help you just come back to yourself and do a little bit of journaling. So if you're not into, or you don't have the time right now to do, daily morning pages or tons of free write journaling, this is going to help you tap in and connect with yourself and maybe your bigger purpose or any of those things in a very short amount of time. So for example, this one says, this month I will work on harnessing my inner blank in order to feel blank and blank. And it's amazing. I've done these so many times. There's 12 different versions of them in here, but it's amazing how when I go through this every year, my answers are so different every single time. And then down here you have a space to write down maybe what you want to release or let go of, any of that kind of stuff. Then every month you have a quote page, and I also love using this for mind mapping or writing clouds for different self-care things I want to do, or maybe the books I'm reading, all of those things. So, you know, or a place for stickers, you decide. And again, you may use this more functionally where it's just very simple, minimal writing, or you may get into stickers, washi tape, and colored pencils and highlighters. It's up to you. The success list is great, and I will link below. There's a whole podcast episode on the Mindful Productivity podcast about how to use a success list and why they can be so helpful. But basically every month when you have something good happen, you're gonna come in here and write those things down. So you're both gonna write down things that you accomplished, so things more in your scope of control, right? Things that you did or you noticed, like, you know, maybe it's something as simple as I got out of bed today, or I met my step goal, or, you know, I finished a book I was reading, or blah, 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 those kind of things. And then there's also things that happened for me. So these can be things like outside of you that you don't control, but that happen to be very lovely, right? Like I was having a cup of coffee this morning and a hummingbird came right up next to my nose, or I was on my way to the grocery store and I hit all the green lights. And you'd be surprised how looking at gratitude this way can be so, so helpful. And it's also great to come back and look at these when you're having a bad day. Then you get to choose up to 4 different daily actions or habits. So if you want to, you know, drink 100 ounces of water every day, or get a certain amount of steps, or maybe you're, you know, wanting to write down a blog idea for your website every day, whatever, you can write those down here, and then you can write down the days of the month and you can highlight them in. You could also write in, you know, the steps that you get or any of that kind of stuff in here. So those are the monthly banks, and those are all the same. And as you can see, there's different intention setting ones every month. So then we get into the weekly spreads, and these are very, very simple. Again, there's a space in here to write your week number, the month, and the dates of the week that you're in, and you can write the dates up here. And again, sometimes, let's see if I have a good example, and I never know if I have stuff. Oh, let's do this one. As you can see, this one's like super colorful, but they're not always like this. But I wrote in the dates, and then I used a bunch of stickers, and sometimes I make more like to-do lists, and other times it's kind of like what happened or how I felt or what I did. And then I use the notes section right here to map out that Google Workspace course I was working on. And as you can see, I used color coding, so everything for the Google Workspace course is in pink, and I had like a little brainstorm over here of different free training topic ideas. And then I also had my productivity and planning week I was planning for. That was a summit I did in the spring, summer. And then I had different to-dos related to that I needed to do. And as you can see, like my brain was all over the place, but because I color coded things, it's easy for me to draw those connections. But this is one way that you can use those weekly pages. And again, just to show you this blank so you can see what this is at the baseline, you have a section for notes, a section for to-dos, and then an idea space down here. And again, brainstorming, whatever you want to do. You could also do a weekly journal prompt. There's tons of fun sites that have, you know, a weekly journal prompt or something like that. So you could do that. You could do reading notes, and then you could section out by color coding, maybe like personal to-dos, business to-dos, all that kind of stuff. I also like to use this if I'm working on a focus project. I will come in here and sometimes I will write down like the things that I'm like the main theme for the week, and the tasks that I'm doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so forth. And then like notes I have, and maybe even more micro to-dos or things that I hadn't scheduled, right? So when you're creating a project, it can be so helpful to both have a due date, like a DUE date of when you need to accomplish it, and also a due date, DO date, for when you're gonna be doing things. So that's that. And then in the back here, there are collections and lists pages. And again, there's a whole section in the front with tons of ideas, but I mean, you could have your TBR, to be read list here. You could have parks you want to visit, or you know, shopping lists for the holidays, or maybe your Thanksgiving menu that you want to reference. And there's sections that are both tall columns like this, but then there are also pages like this, so for more longer form things. So sometimes I actually like to use this for books, because if there's a longer title and the author, then I have more space. But that's what's included. And then there's some notes pages in the back. But again, the Mindful Productivity Guide really is helping you map out things at both a bigger picture and then get more clear on what those weekly actions are going to look like. And it's undated, so if you vacillate between, you know, using something like Notion, Google Workspace, or another project management system, then it's okay if you skip or miss a week. Now, where does this tie in to the Daily Productivity and Brain Dump book? Well, I use this less frequently than the Brain Dump book because I don't need to reference it necessarily every single day. It's something I check in with myself, you know, at the end of the week, the beginning of the week, and usually midweek to kind of make sure I'm on track. But I use the Daily Productivity book, and this is the hardcover version. I'll have links for all the different versions of these below. But I use this every day to do those brain dumps, to really make sure that I'm decluttering my brain, and then I'm kind of mapping out what I'm doing at a micro level. So let me see if I have a good example. Let me see if I can show you. And again, I'll just do a quick flip through. Like, this is how often I use this. I mean, look at all these brain dumps and pages here. And I know some people like to pause and try to zoom in on stuff, and that's fine. You're probably not going to know what most of this stuff is that I'm talking about. But as you can see, it's very, very helpful. So this is a good one. This was back in June of 2020 when I really felt the need to kind of start rebuilding stuff. So one thing I'll do is I always do a brain dump for sure, like daily, and those look a variety of different ways depending on the template I'm using, and sometimes they're pretty minimal and other times they're not, right? And sometimes just going on a walk can be really helpful for my brain dump for the day. So again, it doesn't have to be the same every single day. It just depends on how you want to use it. But I do my brain dump, I declutter my mind, and then this is where I map out like the fine-tuned stuff for the day. So for example, let's say you were checking in with yourself for the week, and let me go back to that. This will work. And on this particular week, I had some different stuff that I needed to work on for Google Workspace, my website updates, and the slow plan that I was working on. Now, what I could do is check in with myself, and I also, in this page, I don't know if you can see this, sometimes I use these days as kind of like just a little bit of journaling. But one thing you could do is check in on what you've got going on for the week, and then break these things down even more, right? So let's say that Google Workspace was the main focus for the day. I may want to even take like the outline course section and put that here, and then break down what are the specific 5 steps that I need to do to outline the course, right? Getting clear on the objectives and outcomes, the actual curriculum, the kind of content, maybe there's transcripts or videos, you know, the pace of the course, all that kind of stuff. So you can basically take everything that you're working on in the Mindful Productivity Guide in your weekly plan, and then break it down even more in your daily brain dump page, daily productivity and brain dump page. So I do have another video where I walk a little bit more through this process, so I won't go into that in detail in this video, and I will link that below. But these are 2 companion guides that I absolutely love and use together every single week. I definitely use this one more frequently since it is daily, but this can be helpful, especially, you know, for quarterly or annual planning, to kind of sit down and really capture what your main goals are. And you may not use it as frequently, but you can come back to it as a wonderful reference guide. All right, I would love to know if you found this video helpful and what you use for planning. And if you have any questions about anything, drop your comments below and I will talk to you there. Bye.